everybody, welcome to my latest live broadcast. Today is the 24th of February 2022. My name is Kerry Holzman. It's Thursday, and we're going to continue on with more information from last night's show, where I stopped with pretty much everything still as it was from yesterday's show, and spoke with the owner of this computer and got a lot more information to share with you, and we now have a direction that we can move forward. And I'll explain all of that as we proceed through today's show. I am going to try to wrap up today's show in 2 hours. Remember I said that. Seriously, I need to wrap it up in 2 hours. So first of all, thank you to everybody joining me on this late night show. Temp with $10 Australian contribution kicks us off with our first contribution. Says, hey Kerry, hope you were well. Always looking forward to your show. Thank you, Temp. Glad you're here with us, and welcome in everybody else. I'm going to get right to the gist of tonight's show. First of all, I want to talk to you about the person who owns this computer. Let me step up a little closer. Where are you? There you are. The gentleman who owns this machine doesn't represent a typical customer of this kind of build. For me, they exist. You see them sometimes. They're a rare breed, and I want to tell you a little bit about them. I think it's important. We have to take everything under consideration. We're not just dealing with computers, we're also dealing with people. And it helps you to be a better computer technician or to be a better friend to somebody if it's more than just the hardware you're looking at, but you understand the other person's values, what they consider important in their computer. What you consider important only matters to you. So when you're working for somebody else, if you're going to help somebody else, to truly help them, listen to what they need. Don't tell them what they need. Listen to them. The gentleman that owns this computer, his name is Marvin. Marvin is 75 years old. Marvin enjoys playing first-person shooter games. Marvin did 3 tours in Vietnam. He was awarded the Purple Heart 3 times. He's what they call a Mustang. He rose up within the military. He didn't go to a military school. He didn't go to West Point and come out and become a sergeant. He started as a private and, worked his way up to captain, and was career military. And then they did a, what do they call it, a RIF, a reduction in force, where they sort of force you into retirement. You get an honorable discharge, but you have to leave. And in fact, they didn't even let him keep his commissions, so he was reduced by rank as well. Oh, I think he was reduced in rank if he was going to stay. Something, I can't remember the complexities. Oh, the American military, what they do to their veterans is not a new story. And it's why I enjoy helping veterans so much, because, well, not that all veterans need help, but there are some who do, and the government, well, I don't need to go on about it. Anybody who's familiar with the American military knows it knows the injustice in our VA system. But be that as it may, that's another topic for another day. Marvin, at 75 years old, enjoys first-person shooters. And when he bought this computer, he wanted to buy one for me last year, and I was just busy, and I wasn't taking on any more work, and I didn't know who he was. He's just another voice in a sea of voices trying to reach out to me, and it's overwhelming sometimes. And I said, you can wait or you can buy somewhere else. I can't take on any more work. And he waited for a while, and he decided he was watching some other YouTube channel who was recommending this manufacturer. And imagine you're on the phone, and this guy tells you, I like first-person shooters, and they start putting a system together for him, and they start recommending Threadripper, and he's like, no, I don't want Threadripper. I know that, right? He knows it, and he says, but I like these games, first-person shooter games, and they said, well, what kind of monitor do you have? And he said, well, I got a Samsung G, whatever. And you're like, oh, well, then you really want 2 video cards to power that monitor. What? I don't think Marvin cares if he's getting a certain refresh rate or a certain frequency refresh, FPS or hertz rate. I think he just wants a smooth game playing experience, and he didn't really know enough about it to debate it. He sort of explained what his needs were, and he got upsold on a lot of stuff, and I think he was overcharged grossly, and I don't think that the quality was very well done in this build. Marvin says he's never taken the side panel off, so everything we're seeing is exactly as he received it. I visited with Marvin tonight. I went over and visited with him to talk with him face to face, and I asked him if he wouldn't mind if I shared his story and shared his picture. And so this is Marvin. I just took this picture earlier tonight. He's a great guy. And you know, I thought the computer smelled like a litter box. And I said, you weren't offended by that, right? I mean, it just smells like a litter box. Look, the way I grew up, if you didn't take a shower and you stunk and you were sitting at the dinner table, my mother didn't look the other way. My mother, right in front of everybody, said, you need to take a shower, you stink. You need to wash something. She doesn't want to tolerate your stench at her dinner table. She's not going to wait for anybody else to say, if you have something stuck between your teeth, do you want to walk around because nobody wants to tell you you've got a piece of broccoli in your teeth? If you've got a booger in your nose, do you want somebody to say, hey, you got a little something here? Or do you want everybody to just not say anything and you continue to go out through your entire day? Wouldn't you rather somebody said something? Marvin says, I'm actually glad you said something. I don't notice it, but you know, I'm glad you said something. And he goes, we don't have cats. My wife rescues dogs. And so we've had a lot of dogs. And I'm like, you know, could I like this person anymore? I'm a huge dog lover. And I guess, yes, if you have puppies, I can see now how that reminded me of a litter box. It's been a long time since I've had puppies. So they're rescuing dogs, and his wife rescues dogs, and he's a 3-time Purple Heart recipient. He's wounded in combat, I guess, 3 times. And he's, you know, he's not bitter and angry at the world. You know, he's a genuine good guy. And so he was building computers for his grandkids. He got first involved in computers doing some PTSD-related counseling. And they introduced them to computers about 30 years ago. And he really loved this game, Privateer. And I said, well, wasn't that Wing Commander? He goes, yeah, it later became Wing Commander. I said, well, that's what got me into the PC. Away from Atari was the Wing Commander game. And he goes, oh, before that I played Zork. I'm like, I played Zork, but you're telling me you weren't raised with computers. You weren't like a ham radio operator. He said, well, no, I had a ham radio license, but I wasn't really into it. I said, okay, so you only got into computers 30 years ago as a digital immigrant, and you've embraced it and you love it. He's like, yeah. And he's building computers for his grandkids, and now he can't do it anymore. And he's got a lot of parts for projects that never came to fruition. And, you know, I'm learning all this as I talk to him. Remember, this isn't just about a computer. We're talking about a human being, and we're talking about their entertainment or their connection to the world and their needs. Not my needs. It's not about what I want to build. It's not about my budget. It's not about what I think. Okay? He's telling me what he needs, and I'm going to try and put together something for him that matches that. Now, a couple contributions have come in, so I'm going to step around and just give a few shots out before I lose the information off the screen. So thank you, James Prezi, with your $5 contribution. He said he hears a little periodic static and also air in the audio. That's okay. I'm not quite sure. Nothing I can do about that now during a live show, but something I'll have to look into. Peter Lycock with 50 pounds says, good morning, Kerry, and everyone in the chat from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 36 degrees Fahrenheit or 2 degrees Celsius. Hey, Peter, thank you as always. James, appreciate you, as well as Team Temp. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. So I'm talking with Marvin. And he says this is the first AMD system he's ever had, and he really wanted Intel. And he's not happy with what he's seeing. He's in agreement with the things I'm saying. And he kind of, you know, he spent his wad on this beast of a machine here, and ain't exactly sitting on a ton of money anymore to make it right. And I said, I'll tell you what we can do. I have an idea. I said, you don't need both those graphics cards, and you're not going to sell them. So maybe we can make a trade. And he's like, well, what do you have in mind? I said, what do you think about the computer case? He said, I don't even like that case. I said, do you like the RGB? No, didn't want the RGB. They were going to sell me a different case, but then they realized when they were building it, the video cards wouldn't fit, and they had to change the case. Okay. So you'd prefer a computer with no RGB? Yeah, that's what he wanted. Okay. Make a note of that. You'd prefer Intel. There's nothing wrong with the AMD system, but he's always had Intel. He prefers Intel, and if he had a choice to do it over again, he'd do it with Intel. So, okay, I've got some Intel chips laying around. We could pull the board and the CPU. We can reuse the RAM. We can reuse the power supply. We'll find you a case that's no glass and no RGB. You don't need the liquid cooler? He says, no, I don't need that liquid cooler. I said, okay. Okay, well, this wouldn't cost too much. And then if I take a video card in trade, we'll use one of your cards. Are you okay with that? Oh, yeah, sure. He said this thing didn't even have Windows 10 on it when he received it. So chances are he never enabled the SLI in the software. It's not enough to load a driver. You have to actually go and enable SLI. And if he did that, he probably would have had a lot of problems. So I didn't go that far in our conversation. I didn't ask him those details. He's no stranger to building computers and installing Windows 10. So maybe he did. I'm assuming he did not. If you've never used SLI before, you'd think just loading the driver, if you're inexperienced, that would be enough. So I said, okay. And he says, look, I've got some motherboards here. I have a 1080 brand new in a box I've never used. I was going to build it for the grandkids. I've got an X99 board with a chip and everything loaded. It's just sitting in a box. He goes, maybe you could take that, maybe you could give it to other veterans or even just people in need. And I said, you know, I liked you before, and I'm liking you even more now. Like, can this guy get any better? So I said, okay, I want to do this right by you. I want to make sure that you get the machine that you want, that you've always wanted. And I wanted to see if I can do it in a way that won't cost you any money. Because you've already got this huge investment. If I take your old graphics card, if I take the extra graphics card here, we can help other people out. If we take your old parts, he's like, oh man, my wife would be so happy if we could get these parts out of the house. I got a couple cases brand new in a box. You want those? I said, if you want to give them to me, I will find homes for them, and we'll use everything we can, you know. Use the whole buffalo. And so that's why I was over there. I drove home with a car full of computer parts and cases, and I've got a box filled with random hardware that I have to go through. I have no idea what's in there. And we'll put it to use. And we'll honor his request and prioritize helping out other veterans and other people in need and kids, all of it. He wants to help whoever needs the help. And we're going to help him. So it's interesting how a simple computer repair suddenly gets very humanized. You know, there's people and feelings and quality of life, not just for Marvin, but for the other people who would take the otherwise hardware that's just sitting around and actually put it to use. And he'd like to see that, and I'd like to see that, and everybody is on the same page. It's an incredible story. The first-person shooters Marvin is playing are not going to be AAA title games anyway. You know, he's really enjoying the games he played 20 years ago. or even so much as Doom and Unreal Tournament 4. He loves Unreal Tournament 4. And he even likes some of the old DOS-based games where he has an old computer specifically to play the old DOS-based, DOS 5, I think he said, with even cassette tapes with software on them, specifically for the purpose of playing those old games, which is exactly the right thing to do. Some people try to load up a virtual machine and try and make it work, and it can be quite challenging. And some people get a rig like this that's way too powerful and it won't play those old games at all, or they're just unplayable. So here's what I'm thinking. I think Marvin would benefit, and I'm on the fence with the processor, but I think an 11600K, he's a gamer. And I think the 11600K is going to run nice and cool. It won't get so hot as an 11900K. I don't want to cheap out. It's not a matter of money at this point. I don't want to say I don't want to give him an 11900K because it's more money. I think an 11900K is way more than he needs, and I think it's going to be loud. The cooler is going to be much louder. So not only would 11600K be less expensive, it'll run quieter, run cooler, and all these games, it's mostly relying on the graphics card. We can move over the 64 gigs of RAM he's got now, but I want to disassemble this machine, and I want to see what all these parts are. He's not even sure what he's got, so we're going to do that tonight. But we'll reuse one of his 2080 Ti's. I'll keep another 2080 Ti, and that'll pay for it. That one graphics card will pay for this whole thing as far as I'm concerned, and he doesn't have to sell it. I'll take care of that. And then what I'll probably do is I'll find somebody in need, and I won't just give it to him probably, because it's like somebody doesn't have a car and you give them a Cadillac. That's a little over the top. But I would heavily discount it and make it affordable, where otherwise GPUs are not affordable at this time. So, still helping people, but of a different need. And what am I missing? He's going to need storage. Well, Marvin says, I got a 2 terabyte Samsung Evo, 970 Evo Plus, just sitting here that I was going to upgrade this to, and I never got around to it. I said, well, give it to me. So he gave me the brand new in a box, just been sitting around, Samsung 970 Evo Plus 2 terabyte. Perfect. So storage is taken care of, power supply is taken care of, video card's taken care of. All I got to come up with, and the RAM is taken care of. So I just got to come up with a motherboard, the side Mugen 5, and the chip. It's not going to be very expensive. Oh, and a new case. Well, it just so happens Silverstone sent me this case called the, what's it called? It's called a SATA Q1, SETA Q1. You can Google that. It's a big black case. No Windows, no RGB. And I want to build something in it, but I don't really want to ship it. It's a little large, a little big. I think it's going to be perfect for Marvin. So the case is courtesy of Silverstone. Everything, all the pieces are just fitting. This bridge, this will be a nice little piece of art to hang on the wall. Nobody needs these anymore. This is an outdated technology from back when video cards weren't very powerful compared to today's video cards. 2 video cards working together from a few years ago are less powerful than a single video card today. So, depending on the models we're talking about. But overall, SLI isn't really supported anymore. It's a thing of the past. It just never worked out well. There was all kinds of issues with it. Some games would be okay, some games would be kind of okay, some games wouldn't work at all. So you'd have to constantly fidget with it depending on the game. In some cases, disable it if you wanted to play a certain game, and in other cases, enable it, but change some certain settings to get that game. It's a lot of work. Man, he don't want to do that. He wants to just play the damn game. So what I want to do today is we're going to dismantle this entirely. I can't imagine we're ever going to reuse the case. Might go to the recycle bin. I don't know yet. We will reuse the motherboard and the processor. Nothing wrong with the AMD. It's not right for Marvin. That's not my decision. That's Marvin's decision. And if that's what Marvin wants, for everything Marvin's done for us, yeah, I think we can do this for Marvin. I think it's a very modest request. This is a build I'm excited to do. I mean, I am really excited, and it feels good. Sometimes I build computers for people I don't get to meet, I don't get to know them. And, you know, it's a customer. They might as well have a number, customer 876, your order's ready. Other times, you get to know somebody, and in knowing them, you sort of feel honored to have an opportunity to do something for them where somebody else failed them. So I want to make up for what this company did, and I want to set him right. And since he's not exactly sure if he has two M.2 drives, let's take it apart and let's find out. What do you think? I want to cut away all the cable ties. I think that's my first step in dismantling this. And I'm going to break this down as much as I can in the next hour here. And we'll analyze what CPU it has. We'll see what M.2 and what size and how many. I have an appointment tomorrow. And because I have this appointment, the show will still be on at 1 o'clock tomorrow, but I'm not going to have Mitch here because I'm going to have to kick him right out. So because of that, I'm going to do a build on my own tomorrow at 1 o'clock, but the show will end earlier than normal because of the appointment. But I've got a build for a gentleman. His name is Edgar, and Edgar wants not a gaming computer. He just wants a good computer for regular, office tasks. And he wants like an 8-year build in the 200R, Corsair 200R. And so that's what we'll do tomorrow. And then next week we'll build Marvin's new computer. But today it's to break it down. Cable management hurts my eyes, says Nick Clark. Yeah, it's not pretty, is it? It's not pretty. Nobody took pride in this. That's clear. You can see how much they cared. I'm trying not to cut through any of the cabling because I want to reuse the power supply. Everything's kind of random and there's no pattern or order to it that I can tell. Nothing's obvious anyway. The great thing, I'll tell you what I'm really good at. If you need something taken apart, completely demolished or demoed, I'm your guy. Put it back together, maybe not so much. I told Super Mike, if he ever needs help tearing motors down, I can tear down any motor. Now putting it back together, I'm going to need some help. But taking it apart, you can just leave me alone with a screwdriver and a wrench, and I'll have that bad boy in pieces. Not broken pieces. I will take out every bolt and every screw, and I will love every minute of it. I've been that way since I was a kid. As you can imagine, my parents had to replace a lot of stuff, but it's a way to learn. We have a fan controller here that's Velcroed onto the side of the case with RGB stuff. I'm guessing these fans are both, the thickness of these cables suggests to me that there is power and RGB in the one cable instead of traditionally two cables, one for power and one for RGB. These are more of a proprietary design, not an industry standard. Robert Fitzpatrick with a $5 contribution. Thank you, Robert. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? Oh look, it's a Molex connector on the fan controller. I don't know who makes this. I've never heard of it before. I can't recommend it. Look at that. Molex Power. He just bought this last year. It's not like he's had it a long time. Look at all these Molex connectors. Here's one. This is the sign of a cheap computer. Here's one. You know when I buy those hot dog builds? That's the last time you've seen me plug in Molex into Molex. The last time I did that was sometime in the 1990s. Those connectors have been around a long time and have long since been obsolete. So it's only the cheapest hardware manufacturers, in my experience in the industry, that use those anymore today. They shouldn't be used at all, and if you see them, you should run away. Run far away from them. It's a sign that somebody is buying old technology and utilizing it and making something new because it's cheaper. That's why they do it. And maybe that's why you bought it, because it was cheaper. This is a big no-no. What we see here is one of the fan cables, and it wouldn't matter if it's a fan cable or a power cable. But they've run the fan between the back of the motherboard and the motherboard tray. Now the back of the motherboard has very sharp, pointy soldering points. So what happens when the computer's being shifted around and moved is those soldering points can pierce the insulation on the outside of the cables, short circuit, and that's right behind his RAM. That would be complete and utter devastation. There's voltage running through this, and to have it ground out against those solder points, because why? Because this case doesn't have proper cable management, and somebody thought it would be a great idea. Look how smart I am. I'm going to run the cable between the back of the motherboard and the tray. Well, if you want to show me that you're an amateur and you don't really have a full grasp of what it is to build computers professionally, this is the act of an amateur. This is somebody who didn't go to school. This is somebody who doesn't have any sort of a electronics academia in their experience. Because if they did, they'd know better than this. Now, what is the likelihood of that shorting out? It depends on the owner of the computer. If it's a computer that gets moved around a lot, you don't know who it's going to, right? The people who built this didn't know Marvin the way I have come to know Marvin. And as it turns out, it's probably going to sit somewhere and never get moved. So in this case, it's all right. But they didn't know that. They took a risk when they did that. And it's an unnecessary one. And it upsets me if you can't tell. I find it insulting that you would take $5,300 of somebody's money and then do that with it. I mean, I understand it's the American way to make money, you know? Upsell the customer, upsell, add-ons, everything you can do. But at some point, enough is enough. Yeah, that's cramming 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag is what they've done here. This is very unprofessional. Let me get these out of the way because I don't want these to fall. That would make me sad. Sad Carrie. Couple of 20-pound 2080 Ti's. Now look at how they left the pigtail on the zip tie on the USB 3 connector and damaged the connector on the motherboard because this can't sit straight with these fans here, and these fans aren't really beneficial to anything. There's nothing down here. All they did was get in the way, and I think they left the pigtail on so they could tuck it in between the fans with the hope that that would help secure it. It didn't. That did not work. If there's nothing tied to the other end of it, what stops it from just coming out? So it's this kind of amateurish. Look, these are the people who do this are the same people that go on YouTube and go, I can do what you do, and I can do it in half the time. Well, those people who say that, more times than not, this is what they build, if they build anything at all. And they can get away with things that a professional who's held accountable cannot get away with. And if you think I get upset about it, of course I get upset about it. Why should I work harder for less money while somebody else can kind of just phone it in and create more profit because I have a conscience? It's not fair. I want to make a lot of money and not care if it's causing somebody to dip into their savings. What I wouldn't give to not have a conscience. I'm mad at my mother for raising me with a conscience. You know how rich I could be if I didn't care so much about other people? Why did she name me Carrie? Couldn't she name me Millionary? That would have been a good name too. Let me get my driver out. We'll take these fans out of here. This might take a while. You got 19 fans in this computer. 1 in the power supply, 3 each on each graphics card, so that's 7. 2 on the radiators, that's 9. 4 on the front of the case, that's 13. 3 on the bottom of the case, that's 16. 1 on the chipset, that's 17. 2 on the back, that's 19. How can you fit 19 fans in this space? It's like the magician who pulls the handkerchief out of his pocket and it just keeps coming. It's ridiculous. Thank goodness I'm not turning these by hand. Be here all day. Oh! That's if they used 4 screws per fan. Oh, this one has 3? That's great. That's just great. Wow. It just keeps getting better. You think for $5,300 they'd give you all the screws? Oh, they gave him the screws, all right. Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Now, I get to tell people I'm a computer technician, and so do the people who built this, whatever you call this. How is that right? How come they get to call themselves the same thing I call myself? And yet the way we work and the things we do are very, very different. Look, I am not saying I am the best tech that's ever lived. And I'm not saying no one's better than me. Don't misinterpret. I'm comparing myself to what is apparently normal in this industry, common. I love to see people that are technicians that are better than me. Look at Anthony Remus, he's better than me. Look at Greg Salazar, he's better than me. And when I say better, I mean they've got the morals, the ethics, the work ethic, the quality and attention to detail of the work that they do. I can tell you right now, Anthony Remus and Greg Salazar work harder than me. Of course, they're younger than me and they have more energy, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not better than them, but I'll tell you I'm better than whoever built this, and by far. And I imagine most of you are too. I hope you are. I'm trying to get the cable out, and it's hung up on something here. I'm trying to fidget with it. Richard Bogan's not a fan of Greg Salazar. I don't know Greg personally, but I'm very impressed with his content. And if you take somebody, whoever they are, and whatever they're known for, maybe they're a football player, and maybe as a football player they're a bad person, but as a football player they're a good football player, right? I'm not judging how these people are as people, although I can tell you, I've talked with Anthony Remus over the years, and I consider him a friend, and I think he's a great guy. I've never spoken with Greg, but I'm very, very impressed with Greg's content. And if there's something about Greg you don't like, you're only punishing yourself by not separating the man from his work, because you can learn a lot from him. He does everything I see him do, he does right. He does it the way a paid professional would do it. And I know the difference because I've been on both sides of the fence. I've seen the way the home user who claims that they're as good as, and they rarely ever are. Sometimes they are, but it's pretty unusual. The ones who boast are usually the ones who aren't very good. Okay, so got the catch of the day here. But, you know, a lot of people don't like me either. I don't care. That doesn't have any impact on my business. As long as my customers like me, then that's the only thing that matters. At the end of the day, everybody's got an opinion, and the opinions that matter are the ones that are paying the bills or the ones that are paying for service. If you're not paying for service, I don't really care. You know, what difference does it make? So, like, if it's raining outside, it doesn't make any impact on my life. All right, let me take these rear fans out of here. We'll drop this radiator. I'm enjoying taking this apart, if you can't tell. I live for taking stuff apart. This is a good day for me. Hey, Carrie, you want to take something apart? Move out of my way. Where's it at? Now you can see what happened here, and this happens frequently. And this is going to be hard to show you from a distance, but on the motherboard, there's a plastic piece that this connector should be blue, but you notice the top of it's black. That's because the connector, the surround came off and stuck to this. And we can get that off because we need to put it back on the board. That's what holds the connector in. And when the connectors go in too tight, that's not a fault of the builder, it's just that happens. Usually the way I get those off is I need a smaller and a larger flat blade screwdriver. And I'll get my glasses. Looks like you just need the big one. Yeah, make your own jokes. And we'll just turn that way. And we just kind of go around. It's really stuck on the clips on this. There, oh, just popped off. So this is the little piece that came off. See? And we have to be very careful when we place this on the board. First of all, we have to know which direction it went on, because it can go on upside down. It looks like the notch on every other connector faces down. So more than likely, and I can double check this later, this notch is going to face the down position. And you've got to be very careful because the holes that the pins fit in are just big enough for the pins, and if you don't get it dead on straight, you will bend the pins. So I'm going to wait till the board comes out of the case to do this. It's a little delicate, but we will put that back on. And we'll pop these USB cables off here, one to the water block and one's going, I have no idea where the other one's going. We'll push these power cables out the back. These were the power cables to the graphics card. See that these power cables, in my opinion, should not have come out through here. They should have come out from down here. That's what this hole back here is for. It seems like whoever built this really did it as a hobby and never had any professional training. And because when they built it, it worked, they concluded falsely that they did it right. Just because you made something work doesn't mean you did it right. And it also doesn't mean that your end result is equal to that of somebody who did it right. There's a reason why there is a right way and a wrong way. And if you don't have to live with the computer and you don't have to deal with upgrades and repairs, then you won't really appreciate the difference between an organized cabling system and a disorganized one, or the routing of the cables and how they can get in your way, or even just trying to figure out which cable is which when you just want to replace a simple fan and you find out you've got to undo 16 cable ties, right? It just takes something simple and overly complicates it, and for no good reason. Now, I'm looking at this connector here, the front I/O, and I guess this is the front I/O. So on the one hand, I'm delighted that there wasn't 12 volts running through this. I thought this was going to the LEDs on the fans. or powering a fan. But what I'm realizing now is this went to the power switch, the reset switch, and so these are just switches. They still ground out, and it still shouldn't have been run behind the motherboard. But what they did is they ran it down to the bottom of the board instead of running it on the outside. What do you think these little loops are for? Why do you think they're there? It's so you don't do this. And now this won't come through because you have to take the board out because there's connectors on the end of this cable that are too wide to fit between the board. See this? So now something simple becomes overly complicated because they didn't understand what they were doing. Or they didn't understand why it's done certain ways. And I know that because if they did know why it's done certain ways, they wouldn't have done it this way. It ain't rocket science to figure out where these people are coming from. And if it was a friend helping a friend, fine. But when you're charging what's probably a $2,000 profit on a $3,300 computer, I expect everything to be perfect, including the customer service. When he got this machine, he was missing one of the little screws that holds the glass on. And he contacted them, and they said to contact case manufacturer. And the case manufacturer wanted to know who built the computer for him. And then he told him, and then they never got back to him. And then he never heard another thing about it. And so it went without, brand new, $5,300 with a missing screw on the case. Not so much as a how do you do. You think they could have bought him dinner first, is all I'm saying. Now, when you come to find out the guy's a 3-time Purple Heart recipient and he's served in Vietnam on 3 separate, deployments, that makes this offensive. Unacceptable. So I guess they can claim ignorance. Well, we didn't know, but they would have done it the same anyway. It's all about profit. Profit, profit, profit. Putting profits over people. Same old stuff. Hey, use 4 screws on this one. I guess because the customer could see this side. When I rebuild this computer, there's nothing wrong with that motherboard, and there's nothing wrong with that chip. I'll put it into a $60 case. I'll reuse the board, I'll reuse the chip. We'll put 16 gigs of RAM is like $50. We'll put that in there. We can throw a 500 gig solid state drive in it for $50. A cooler is, Scythe Mugen 5 Black Edition, or we could probably do silver if we don't put a case window. $60, $50, $60. What I'm trying to get at is when I basically rebuild his computer into a different case, without all the fans, without all the RGB, without the unnecessary liquid cooler, and without the graphics cards, how much do you think this computer's worth? Of course, we don't know what processor, but we do know it's a Ryzen. We don't know what size M.2, and we don't know if he's got 1 or 2. So we're going to find out, but obviously that has an effect of the price, but nowhere can we get close to $5,300. Nowhere. There's no way. And profit margins on computers are notoriously thin profit margins, meaning 10 to 15%. Nobody makes a 50% profit margin on a computer unless you're just dealing with somebody who has no idea what things are worth. See, this is that proprietary fan I was talking about with that connector, just like those Musatex cases. Musatex case is one of the cheapest cases you could buy that's got a glass side panel and RGB, which comes with 6 fans. That's why they use these connectors, because it's budget. They're trying to keep the price down. Why are you trying to keep the price down on a $5,300 computer with a $2,000 profit? Because the $1,980 profit wasn't enough. They didn't want to spend the extra $20. It would have cut into their $2,000 profit. This is the mentality that we're dealing with here. Insanity. Absolute. Put this with the rest of the fans. Where did I put his fans? I set them down somewhere to get them out of the way. Wherever I put them, I picked a good place because I was going to put this with the others, and I don't know where I... Oh, they're over here. Okay, we'll add to this stack over here. Don Parada contributes $4.99. He says, I'm headed to sleep soon. Have a good night, Carrie, in chat. Or morning, depending on where you are in the world. See you tomorrow at the live stream. Peace be with you. Right on. Dom, thank you so much. Thanks for supporting the channel. Have a good night. Thanks for joining. The Cool 2T contributes $2. Says, amazing. All right, I think that caught me up. I hope I didn't miss anybody there. I think that's everybody. Okay. Let's see, where are we at on this now? What do we got going on here? What can we take off next? I can't do anything about this because it's behind the motherboard. Can you see? I guess you can't see that. But this cable right here, that's your front port I/O that's running behind the board. Ah, that angers me. This is the USB cable for the liquid cooler, which, okay, that's okay. All right, let's see what cooler is. Let's see what CPU is under this cooler. Yeah, you gotta love these AMD mounting systems with the little key thing. It's just hokey. There were other AMD mounting systems from other manufacturers. The one that uses these little keys. There's a reason why you don't see me use these ever. It sort of creates a latch. You know, the idea, if you've ever seen an AMD cooler, the stock coolers that clip onto the side, that's effectively creating that little clip. You're just screwing it on. It's just stupid. I don't know who designed that, but they were really lazy in their design, in my opinion. You know, you're accustomed to using a custom backplate, not these plastic clips. These plastic clips, they dry, the plastic gets dry and brittle, and they break, and the cooler falls off. And I've replaced a number of CPUs that were Athlon XPs that overheated and cracked because the customer didn't know. They had no idea it broke off. Computer's just sitting there. Over the years, it gets brittle, it cracks. I don't like using these. There's that other little, call it a key, but it's just a little catch. Let me get a little paper towel. We'll wipe that down and see what CPU's lying underneath. See what's hiding from us. First of all, let me get the bottom of this before it wipes. I mean, first of all, second of all, I've already said first of all, there is a lot of thermal compound on here. Way too much. That's about 3 times more than they needed. Maybe 4 times more. Way too much. Way too much. Maybe they used $1,000 worth of thermal paste. Maybe that's how they justify their cost. That is all over. That's just the bottom of the block. I haven't even done the CPU yet. look at it. I mean, this is a 3 paper towel job. You normally, when you see me clean up my own thermal compound, it takes 1 paper towel. 1. I'm now on number 3. There's more on the edge of the CPU than it's on it. Holy cow. It just oozed out everywhere. Hey, look. There's words underneath all of that goop. Help me. I think that's what it's saying. Wow. Absolutely one of the worst professional builds. This is supposed to be a boutique PC builder. This LYTE, what's it called? LYTE Gaming Computers? Let me tell you something. This is what you can expect if you buy from them. Decide for yourself. Let's see if I can read what the CPU is. This is a Ryzen 3900X. What's the price of a 3900X, or what was the price of a 3900X a year ago? Peter Laycock with another 20 pounds. He says, goodbye everyone, time for work. Hey Peter, have a good day at work. I hope we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for your continued support. I don't like the way this M.2 drive. This M.2 drive looks like where it screws down, it looks like something should be under it to straighten it up. It's sitting like this. I think there was a piece. We'll have to look up the Asus Prime 8 X570 Pro and look to see if it came with a little washer. Remember when I got stuck with that and I said it wasn't sitting right? That doesn't look right. It does look like it's on an angle. He doesn't need anything on this computer, so he's given me permission to break it down, and when we build him something new, I can do a nice clean install of Windows 10, and do it the way I always do it. That's what he wants, and he'll load his games on it. They're all on Steam anyway, so. Yeah, I think there's a piece missing here. I'm pretty sure that there's a piece missing. It's kind of hard to tell. I could be wrong. But I think a washer is supposed to go on top of that. Now, is there another M.2 under this heatsink right here? That's the question. The question even he doesn't know the answer to. We're about to find out the truth right now. There is. So he has 2 M.2s, but we don't know the size. Get a little piece of that thermal tape came off. No, this one looks straight. This one looks fine. This is a budget M.2 drive. Nothing wrong with it, but at $5,300, you think he'd get a Samsung or a bigger name brand of performance, higher performing. James Prezi contributes $2. He said he paid $455.44 in 2020 for his 3900X from Amazon. Even if we give them the benefit of the doubt and say that's a $500 processor, that's a far cry from $5,300. That still leaves $4,800. If we say those video cards were $1,200 each, let's round it up and say the 2 video cards on the processor were $3,000. Does everything else add up to $2,300? Does the motherboard, 64 gigs of RAM, these 2 solid-state drives, that liquid cooler in this case, that power supply add up to $2,000? There's no way. That's budget RAM. This is a budget NVMe, and I don't know the size. It's just not written on here. which is weird. You remember when I fired this up, it came on, I said, well, it's not matching the customer's description. We had a little communication problem. Customer said the problem happened after you tried to log in. It would like reset the whole computer. So he did get to a login screen, but he could never log in. We never took it that far because I misunderstood. But at this point, I believe him. And that operating system install is toast. I said, why was there 2 installations of Windows 10? He says, I don't know. He has no idea how that happened. So it looks like whatever M.2 it is, he's got an exact identical here. Still have a ton of thermal compound to clean off of that. I know what these guys are thinking. They weren't thinking. They saw dollar signs. Oops. Can't get the power supply out. Hard drive cage won't let the power supply come out. Oh my gosh, they ran the power supply cables through the cage. You couldn't put a hard drive in that cage if you wanted to because of the way they put the power supply in. I've never seen anybody do that before. So here's what they did. They said, oh no, look at this. They said the power supply's too big. They've already had to switch out the case once because the graphics cards were too big to fit in the first case they tried to build in, because that's how professional they are. So then they got this case, which is probably the next cheapest case they could buy, and they said, oh, this hard drive cage is in the way, so let's take the hard drive caddies out and throw those away. Don't give those to the customer. And then let's run the modular cables through the slots that the hard drive sleds fit through, never giving the customer the opportunity to ever use this cage. What? Who does this? This is supposed to be a $5,300 top tier gaming system bought 1 year ago, and it was haphazardly slapped together by somebody who didn't care if it meant more profit. The customer will never know. The problem is, a lot of customers would know. A lot of customers would want to add a hard drive to that and should be able to, How can they have any happy customers? Are they all just dumb? And are they all just go, I don't want to build it, I trust you, and then they buy it, and then I understand some customers are never going to open it up, but you're telling me none of their customers open up their cases and deal with this? That this hasn't bit them on the butt with complaints? This can't be the only time they've ever done this. This is why case selection is so important, you know. I understand people want to save money. I get it. Everybody wants to save money. Nothing wrong with saving a little money, but at what cost? This is bad. Ryan Grady joins us with a $10 contribution. He said, this is worse than the Verge PC build. The Verge PC build was really bad editing, I'll tell you that. And then they had no technical editor. And perhaps maybe there's a simple problem of no oversight and no proper training, and that's how this goes out the door, because like the Verge, it's cheaper if you don't hire a technical editor. Kelly Stewart says, hey, Kerry, just sent you an Amazon gift card. Hey, Kelly, thank you as always. John Yasuda with $15 says, hey, Kerry, man, that system scares me. If that builder worked for me, he would be fired. Good job so far, my friend. Remember, if you watched yesterday, I said, and John, by the way, thank you, and it's good to see you. If you watched yesterday, I said, I have to tear this whole thing down. I can't fix this because I don't know the depth. What I'm seeing is bad, but I bet you as I break it down, I'm going to find out it's much worse than I thought it was. So the only way for me to properly fix this for this gentleman, if I were going to repair it, is a complete teardown and rebuild. All right, and that's assuming we were keeping everything. We were just going to set it right. I would have pulled the liquid cooler. I would have put a Scythe 5 on it, fixed the the thermal compound situation, got rid of most of these fans, solved the cable management issues. I would have fixed what's going on with his power supply. In fact, if necessary, we'd use a shorter power supply. I would have recommended an entirely different case, since we're rebuilding it anyway, and then given him back the same system, and I can guarantee it would have run quieter and just overall better, easier maintenance than what he ended up with, and it would have cost him a fraction of the price if it had been built that way from the get-go. He was too trusting. Perry Perry Horolambidis contributes $2. He said they need a lawsuit against them. Well, you know, that's not for us to say because we're not the victims. If you're a victim, then it's your choice. But we can't sue on behalf of their victims. Bob Connors contributes $20. Hey, Bob, thank you. Barry Klein contributes $5. He says, good evening, Kerry and group. Here's a $5 for the Tech Busker tip jar. As always, Barry, thank you. So James, Barry, John, Ryan, Perry, Bob, thank you guys again for supporting the channel. Okay, so I'm trying to get the power supply out. This is like requiring power tools, like hacksaw. I'm not sure how what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to get this? You know what, this might be deserving of the handheld camera. You guys need to see this. I've been in the business for over 30 years. This is a new one. Never underestimate the creativity of the ignorant. They are impressive. Vaccinations have magnetism in them, and ignorance results in such creativeness for replacing their ignorance. And you have to see this. This is a first time. I've never in my career seen anything this bad. Never seen anything so obvious, so overt. It's almost like they're snubbing your nose. They're snubbing they're thumbing their nose at you. Look what we're going to do to you. Look what we're going to get away with, and there's nothing you can do about it. Let's see how far we can push this. This case is a 5-pound case, and it's got 10 pounds of stuff in it. You try putting 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. Let me know how that works out. It's bad. It's unprofessional. If you're an amateur, if you're a novice, if you're building something for yourself, if you're helping a friend and you guys are, working together for having some fun, that's your business. But when you take responsibility and you take accountability and liability for building for customers, and you are engaging in their trust, and you are charging them top dollar for high-end parts, and you're only giving them some high-end parts and everything else is cheap around it, it's like buying a gold coin and you find out it's only gold plated. That's what this is. This is plated. All right, let's see if I can get this angle for you. See if I can turn this on. This is crazy. Okay. So, see the power supply cables down here? Still pretty dark, isn't it? Guess we can maybe get some light on the subject here. Let's see if I can grab a light. Sorry, it's going to get a little motiony. Oh, I'm going to reach over. Okay. Seriously? I'm a computer tech. I build computers. I've been doing it for years. I could do what you do, Carrie. I could do it faster or better than you. And I can make a lot more money than you, Carrie. You don't know what you're doing, Carrie. Well, I don't see you have any videos. Oh, no, I don't do videos. Yeah, I can see why. Because if people saw the kind of work you do, you would probably have to go into hiding. No, I'm better than you. I don't have no education or experience, but I'm better than you. Okay, you have a nice day now. Unfortunately, this is not a victimless crime. You do that to yourself. Don't do that to other people. What's wrong with you? There's that cable running behind the board. Goes down. This is going to the power switch, reset switch, power LED. What are these for? I don't know. I'm going to put it behind those. I'm creative. Okay. Yeah, that's what I get to deal with in my life. I got to deal with those people. You feel sorry for me? If there's anything in the world that makes me want to keep doing my job, it's those people. Those are the people who motivate me to get out of bed every morning and keep doing this. If I'm not in the mood, all I got to do is hear from one of those people about how much better they are, or I got to hear from a customer who took their computer somewhere else or bought a computer from somewhere else, and they don't want to deal with that other company for some other reason, and they're just like, please, will you help me? I'm like, of course I'm going to help you. I can't retire. If I retire, who's going to do this? I know there are others like me. I know there are others who do great work. Where are you? I'm right here. I've been telling you the whole time I'm better than you. Great. All right. Those people, I really shouldn't complain about them, right? Because they keep me in business, don't they? The more those people screw up, the more work I get. But that's not my nature. I hate to see people get taken advantage of, and for me to have to make it right. I wish I lived in a world where I didn't get jobs like this. Well, then you're an idiot. You'd be out of business. You're right. You're absolutely right. I would be out of this business, and I would be in a totally different business. It's not like I'm a one-trick pony. I'm sure there's other things I could do, like... Well, I'll get back to you on it. guess that's how I'm going to have to do it. Dumbest thing I've ever seen. I've got to pull the cables out, obviously. And to do so means I got to get all the way in the back somehow. I've got to invent a way for something that's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be modular. Modular means you can plug it in and plug it in. It implies that everything's super easy and customizable. It doesn't mean, oh, it's not even fully modular. It's a semi-modular power supply that just barely fits. Look at that. That just barely fits in there. Look at this. Ryan Grady contributes $5. He goes, Kerry, you are the Mike Holmes of PCs. Yeah, you guys remember Mike Holmes? He had a Canadian, well, he is Canadian, but on HGTV, he had a show, Homes on Homes, where he would fix what construction workers did. Even on brand new construction, they didn't seal a house right. People are getting mold. They're getting drafts. They're getting moisture inside their house because it wasn't sealed. The floors aren't straight. The house isn't sitting straight. He'd go in and fix all of it. I like Mike Holmes. He's inspiring. And he has a better attitude than me. He didn't get upset. I mean, he did, but not as visibly as I do. I've seen pictures of Ryan Grady's work, and he looks like he does good work. If Ryan was in Phoenix, I'd hire him for sure. Rami Hermes contributes $5 Kerry, take a 5-minute break. No, I'm almost done. I'm getting close to the finish line. I'm speeding up. I want to wrap this up. I don't have 5 minutes to break. I got to stop in 45 minutes. I have to. Let's get the radiator out. Oh, they didn't use all the screws on the radiator. 1, 2, 3, 4. What about these two and these two? Well, you don't need them. So where are those screws? Oh, don't worry about it. We're a bespoke PC builder. We know. You don't need that. Oh, you don't need any of that cash in your wallet either. Give us that. Did we take it all? Did we leave any? You don't need that. That's too much responsibility for you. You better give that cash to us. It's insulting. Talking this way to a military veteran with 3 tours in Vietnam. Yeah, you better let us do this for you. Like he's a child. The level of disrespect here sickens me. I'm running out of counter space. They sure did cram a lot in here, didn't they? Wow. You think we can crab 10 pounds of crap into this 5-pound bag and then overcharge for it? No way. Bet's on. Just because somebody got tricked doesn't mean they're a fool. I'm going to feel so good when I give Marvin his computer. When you and I, we're going to build this. We're going to build this next week for Marvin. We're going to do him right. Mark my words. If I bring a computer to Marvin and he doesn't like it, whatever he doesn't like, I will bring it back and I will make it right. But I think I know exactly what Marvin will be happy with. I really think after I got to know him, I could be wrong, but if I'm wrong, I will fix it and make it right. Hey, they used all the motherboard screws. That's something. Okay, so when I take out this last screw, the whole board's going to fall out, so I want to make sure that I hold on to it. I don't want to damage anything. The board works. Oh, I missed one on the bottom. I try to get all the bottom ones out because otherwise the whole board's leaning forward and it could crack the board down here. If it had a lot, like if it had a big heavy heat sink on it, that could have cracked the board. So it's important you take out the bottom screws first. If you make a mistake, like I just made a mistake, it's okay. It's just a general rule you want to follow. And most mistakes are easily corrected. Like I said, without a big heavy heat sink, there was no harm. There's our board. And there's our front port panel switches. And you see how there's a big metal backplate back here? Most modern heat sinks, when you are using AMD, replace these little plastic, whatever you call them, and you screw straight down into a metal backplate, so you don't have to worry about the plastic getting dry and brittle, and then it breaks, and you wouldn't know because it's happening inside of the computer. Well, I guess if you have a glass panel, you could see it. But back in the day, on the XP days, Athlon XP, nobody had case windows, and so they just bring a computer, smoke came out of it, and you'd see that the CPU heatsink was sitting crooked because it was no longer latched on because the latch got brittle and cracked. So, okay. More missing screws. I guess the screws are really expensive and you have to ration them. What's the logic behind not using all the screws? Laziness? Can't be bothered? How was your day? I'm so glad that Marvin didn't give up on me. I know I was busy and I know I didn't have time, but I'm so glad he reached back out a year later, however long it's been, and he said, hey, you might remember me, you might not. I'm so glad. Helping him is an honor. I feel blessed. Let's do something Marvin never did. Look how clean that is. Perfect. So all these fans up front were screwed in from behind, except the bottom one, which has 2 screws on the outside, and the top one that has 2 screws on the outside. It's like we just make this up as we go, folks. We're just making it up. We don't know how to do it, but we don't need to learn how, because we're smarter than the people who have the education. Education is optional. You don't have to have an education. You don't have to watch videos and educate yourself. It doesn't have to be an academic education. It's totally optional. As you can see, you don't need any experience to build a computer, and you can keep doing it wrong over and over and over again and be blissfully ignorant of how wrong you are because you don't know what you don't know, and somebody who does know is then going to belittle you for taking such a stance of self-confidence, of false self-confidence in the face of reality, just denying reality. And you know what? Maybe it's not even the builder's fault. Maybe the builder was told to build it and they said, how do I do it? And they said, figure it out. Maybe not the builder's fault. I don't know the situation. It's still unacceptable. Ricky B contributes $5. He goes, Carrie, check your PayPal. I sent you some money for parts for Marvin's build. I am pissed and heartbroken. As you said, it's an honor to help him. Yeah, well, thank you. And I'm glad you agree. I think I have enough parts around here. And we'll do, we'll take a trade in on Marvin's stuff, and we'll make sure Marvin's other random parts will go to people in need, and preferably other veterans like Marvin. Our country fails our veterans routinely. That is just what it is, right? Was that famous line from Rambo, or was it First Blood? He says, I just want my country to love me as much as I love it. And if you're a veteran and you need to go to the VA, you may not feel like, boy, I'll tell you, I've heard a lot of stories. I have a lot of customers who are veterans, a lot of them. And I've never heard one have a good thing to say about the VA. Never, not once. They might know of a good VA in Tucson, but not in Phoenix. Mm-mm. I know of veterans that will drive for hours to go to a different VA. So here's the case we have. Here's what's left of it. Here's the skeleton. It's lightweight. The metal rather isn't that thin, but it's certainly not at the level of higher end cases. This did have a USB 2 and a USB 3 up front, which is nice. They really, the hard drive cage is riveted in place, which is why they couldn't remove it to make room for the power supply. The dust is just living in Arizona. That's going to happen if you live in Arizona. Nothing you can really do about the dust. I see one of these little rubber pieces for the glass came off. We'll put that right back on there. That's where that goes. Yeah. No hard drive sleds, for obvious reasons. I think this is going to get introduced to the recycle bin. What do you think? What a waste. So when push comes to shove, what Marvin's got is a board. We can put this piece back on it. I don't know which way this went. Did I go this way or did I go the other way? I think it went that way. My hands are covered in dust. I didn't blow this out before I worked on it. I really was anxious. I wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of it. I wanted you to see it as it was. Now the dust, like I say, that's not the manufacturer's fault. That's just living in Arizona. That's going to create the dust. Ryzen 3900X. The RAM, let's pull one of these out and I'll show you. Very tall RAM. This could get in the way of a heat sink, which is maybe why they went with the liquid cooler. When you have RAM this tall, it can often interfere with any tower cooler. I think a Scythe Mugen 5 would be all right, but even then, yeah. I think the Mugen 5 would, I don't know. I think it would fit, but most coolers don't accommodate RAM that tall. It's very tall. Now, nothing wrong with the RAM. It's not particularly fast RAM, and it's not high-end RAM that you would expect on a $5,300 build. I know, quit moving it around. So 3,000 speed. Look how thick that is. Most RAM goes up to about here. You can see where the RAM module, where the DIMM ends, and then all of this is added. It's a good ½ inch. And that can cause interference with coolers. Obviously, if you had a liquid cooler, that wouldn't be a problem. It's a weird reason to put a liquid cooler on, but you know, some people want the aesthetic over the power. I'm not sure that's a choice he made, but rather a choice that was made for him. I got a ½ an hour. Okay, so let me see what these M.2s are. I'm gonna wash some of this off my hands. Excuse me for just a moment as you're gonna hear the water running. I'm gonna get this dust off of me. Maybe even add a little soap. And let me grab my M.2 enclosure. I love this little M.2 enclosure. This is the TS16 from Silverstone. Drop my microphone again. There we go. Okay. This is like my new favorite go-to M.2 enclosure. The TS16. And Silverstone's not paying me for this. They did send me the enclosure for free and asked me to review it, and I've fallen in love with it. Imagine how much more I'd love it if they paid me. But I just like that it just has no lid on it, and there's completely tool-free. And it's just, you pop the drive in, plug it into USB, and you're ready to rock and roll. Oh, it does have the power button. I kind of wish it didn't have the power button. I guess they think it's more convenient for you to hit the power button so you don't have to unplug it to swap the drive. But the cable's so short, just unplug it and swap the drive. You wouldn't need the power button. I suppose that's one criticism. I gotta find a criticism or I'm not doing my job. Now we just need Greg Salazar to clean the computer. Says Tech Ninja. I wish. I wish. All right. Okay, M.2 drive. Let's pop it in here and see what we're dealing with. I already know we're not going to reuse these, but I just want to know the capacity of them. I got an NVMe drive. What size is it? That's all you need to know. We'll plug it into the streamer. Okay. Well, apparently I pulled up the boot drive. That's fine. They should both be the same size based on the model numbers. And of course you can't see it, but I can see it. And I will tell you what I see. 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte. Now, 1 terabyte Team brand M.2 NVMe SSD a year ago should still have been around $100. He's got 2 of those. I don't know if you're keeping score here, but that's about $200 in NVMe drives. Now, most people are going to tack on a small profit, but it shouldn't be more than 10 or 15%. You've got the Asus Prime X570 Pro board, the AMD Ryzen, what did I say it was, a 5900X, I think. I've got so much stuff on the counter. What do I do with the glasses? Oh, right in front of me. Let's say a $500 processor, a 3900X, a Ryzen 9 3900X. RAM is 3000 speed DDR4 from ADATA, XPG model, and it should be 64 gigs. It doesn't look like 64. He said 64. This, I believe, is 32. This RAM module says it's 8 gigs, so that'd be 8, 16, 24, 32. I think the 64 gigs is in the laptop he wants me to work on. Once we've finished this project, he's got an issue with his laptop. But he didn't want to give me both at the same time because the laptop works, it just doesn't work. I think he's running out of space and he needs an upgrade and he wants to do something else to it. So he's using the laptop now. When we get this to him and he has a working computer, then he'll give us the laptop and we'll do that one afterwards. And then he'll be good to go. But these are 8 gigs each, I think. I think that's 32. I'd have to power it on and check it. But I'm fairly certain there's a little piece that screws onto this top M.2 drive that's missing because these are way too low. The M.2 drive sits on an angle, so it wasn't built properly. It was built, and it worked for a while. But this is what happens when you do stuff like this, folks. It makes any sort of maintenance, support, upgrade, repair take way more time. People have to basically redo the job you did. And if you don't know about it, then you're living in blissful ignorance. And there's a reason why you don't know about it, because people aren't bringing the computer back to you. They don't trust you anymore. They don't want to deal with you anymore. So you're over here in your world and you're not hearing any complaints and you think everything's peachy keen. But it's not sustainable. Eventually, word gets out, people talk, and they're going to be referring their friends to somebody else. They're going to share their stories. They won't share them with you. When you piss off a customer, they're going to tell everybody. If you please a customer, yeah, they might tell a couple people, maybe. But piss one off is a sure way to make sure people talk about you. Almost guaranteed. And I don't mean a little bit, I mean a lot. Okay, so, okay, that's the one M.2, and the other M.2 is the same, but we'll just double check it to be sure. This was a boot drive. I'll grab this one. Isn't this thing awesome? You just pop the drive in, bend the little nubby thing back, we're ready to plug in that quick. Not great for a permanent enclosure, but if you're somebody like me, if you've got, well, let's face it, there's nobody like me, but the world would implode. But that is just a wonderful tech tool. And because it's NVMe or SATA compatible, it doesn't matter what kind of M2 you have. Oh, this looks like a boot drive too, so he had 2 different boot drives. Yeah, no, this was out of control. I've turned into Regis Philbin. I'm out of control. Okay, so I've run out of room. Let me just clear some space. And I need to grab the keyboard, and I'm going to erase this drive and format it. No, you know what? I'm going to use the disk part command, and I'm going to clean it. And then I'll do the same thing to the other one. And I don't want it to confuse me in the future. So I don't want Windows on it. There's nothing on here he wants, needs, or desires. We're going to wipe it. Disk part, list disk, select disk 1, clean, all clean, exit, exit, come over here, unplug it. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the one I just had in there. We're going to just reset these, factory reset them. Wipes out the partition, obviously wipes out the data. The data would still be recoverable, but we're going to write over them. When it writes over that, then it won't be recoverable anymore. But in the meantime, nobody will have them but me. They're in my inventory, and there's really nothing to recover anyway. It's just Windows and some games. There's no personal information on these, from what I'm told. And I have no reason to believe that's not true. Select disk 1, clean, exit, exit. Okay, that's done. Away. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 20 minutes to midnight. I wanted to stop at midnight. I have remained on schedule for once in my life by not interacting as much with the chat. I appreciate your patience as I kind of go through all this. It's a little overwhelming, but now that it's broken apart in pieces, it doesn't seem so bad anymore. Let me show you a close-up of the motherboard, and you can see the remnants of the thermal compound and how thick it is around the CPU and what I have to do to clean it up. Frank M. with $10 says, Carrie, great live video and what you are doing for Marvin. Well, think about what Marvin has done for us here in the United States. Do you see how the little plastic housing is around this connector right here? Do you see how it's missing? That's the piece that came off on the USB cable. I've got to be very careful how I put that back on. Thank you, Frank, by the way. Thank you for supporting the channel, of course. Let's put that back on right now. This is going to require the glasses. See, what's interesting is there's a missing pin, but not on this. So that doesn't do as much good as a guide. But the little key, the notch, all faces down on all of these, so this must go on in that same orientation. Unless the same guy who built the computer just slapped it on if he was building the motherboard. Thankfully for us, these boards aren't built by somebody untrained. In fact, in most cases, they're built by machines that always do the same thing. So if somebody loads these pieces in wrong, then every board would be an upside down, and then people would whine and complain, and they would get fixed, and they just have to do a recall. But if just some person working on the line decides where they're going to put these randomly, then no two are alike because there's no process. There's no formal process. Imagine what a nightmare that would be for the company to support that. So if this is your computer, imagine what a nightmare it would be for you to take care of your own computer. That's why you build it right. It's not about making it run as cheaply as you can today. It's about how do we get it to run well today, tomorrow, the day after that, and then make any repairs or upgrades as painless and less expensive as possible. Oh, that clicked on there, so now we'll bring that back up and show you what that looks like. Of course, this will be the way you would recognize it because you normally don't see it naked like that. But this piece right here, that's the one we just put on. That's your USB 3. Okay. And that just happens. I'm not going to slam the builder for that. That happens. It's just the connector fit tight. But I'll slam the builder for everything else. It wasn't just one mistake. Here's Patrick Rusaw. He says maybe Marvin can appear on a video when you're done building his PC and we can thank him for his service. He'd probably be open to that. I told you I got a picture of Marvin I took earlier tonight, and I can check any missed messages. Marvin was talking when I snapped this picture. It looks like he's giving me the business. That's not a guy you want to mess. Does that look like a guy you want to mess with? Come on. There's a guy who's seen some stuff in his life right there. 3 tours in Vietnam, 3-time Purple Heart. Look at the hat. That's a proud American right there. And another American did him dirty. That is wrong. Wrong, I say. People, how do they sleep at night? Holy cow. I see a $500 contribution from Ricky who says, I want this to go to Martin, the Vietnam vet's computer parts costs. Holy cow, Ricky. Thank you on behalf of Marvin. That's unnecessary. It's unnecessary, but appreciated. And if we end up not using all of it for parts, because I've got some parts around here. I was going to give it to them at my cost. So if you want to cover the cost of that, I still think we'll have some left over, and we can put that to other veterans as well. You don't see generosity like that often, and that's extremely kind. $50 Amazon gift card from Kelly Stewart. Kelly, thank you so much. As always, you guys, I always get my parts from Amazon. So if you get the Amazon gift cards, PayPal doesn't take any of the percentage out of it, and I'm going to spend it on Amazon anyway. But I think what I'm going to do, and you guys let me know what you think. You can let me know in the comments after the video is done. Do you think an 11600K is going to be good for a gamer? I don't really think he needs an 11700 or an 11900, and I'm not saying that to be cheap. But I know I went over this earlier, but some of you may just be joining. I really feel like I think Marvin will have a better experience with 11600. Marvin gave me a Samsung 970 EVO Plus 2 terabyte, brand new in a box, never opened, to use on his new build. So he's already provided, we can reuse that EVGA power supply. We've already got storage. I can use a B560 HD3 motherboard. Those motherboards are $100 all day long. The 11600K, a Scythe Mugen 5. Use a black edition or a silver one, it won't matter. So we got the power supply covered, we got the cooler, the CPU. We can reuse his RAM, or we can put some different RAM in it. I mean, if we want to get rid of the RGB, because you'll be able to kind of see the RGB bleed through the holes in the 200R. Oh, I won't use the 200R. I'll use that Silverstone, what did I say it's called? SETA-Q1. Because I need to review the case anyway. And it's a bit large to ship it. That may be just perfect. Arthur Morgan suggests a 12400F. It's not a bad idea. I don't normally go with the Fs because the F means there's no built-in graphics in the chip. But since he's going to be using discrete graphics anyway, I hadn't considered that. I have a couple of chips at Studio A that are KF chips, but I think they're 9900 KF or 9700 KF. And so because of the cost of graphics cards, I won't use them. But boy, those processors are going to sit because of that. Ooh. But I don't have a motherboard that's 9th gen extra. Arthur says do a B660 board with a 12400F. I like the way you think, Arthur. I like the way you think. William Dawson says, I think an Intel 11600 would be fine. It's an 11600K. No difference. Get him the Samsung drive. We have the 970 EVO Plus here. That's the other thing. If we go 12th gen, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Gen 3 M.2, but we could go Gen 4 M.2 for him. But I don't think he's going to notice a difference, honestly. It's milliseconds. Stealth Mode wants us to hook him up with a rocket ship. Ricky B says, when you see a Vietnam vet, you greet him and you welcome him home because of the crap they got when they came home originally. I would think they're over it, but there's certainly no harm in doing that. Kenton Morton says, I'd go with an 11700K 8-core if he's playing AAA title. He's not playing AAA title. He says it'll perform better and last a bit longer. Well, no argument there. Braden says he deserves a 12900K Z690 and a 3090. I don't think he deserves all the heat and noise. You know how loud a 3090 gets, and do you know how loud a 12900K cooler can get? I don't think he deserves that. I know you think that's a compliment to give him that, but I think it would be more trouble, honestly. There's such a thing as overkill, and I appreciate your enthusiasm, but it's not practical for the situation. Super Goofy Extreme says 12400F plus a B660 is the best value for money. We got that $500 from Ricky. I was just going to use the parts I have in stock. But with the contribution, what does Ricky want me to do? Patrick mentions having the integrated graphics built onto the CPU is great for diagnostics, and I agree, but I can't imagine, that certainly wasn't a case with this build. At no point was using internal graphics. The Ryzen chips don't even have it anyway, for the most part. It's pretty unusual to see an AGP, an APU on it. It's pretty unusual to see an APU on an AMD CPU. Well, I'm talking about M.2 NVMe SSD Gen 2 or Gen 3. I just love the nonsense that spews out of my mouth, and everybody nods like they understand me. I think he's just making up acronyms at this point. Just nod your head and agree. Don't look dumb. I know Ryzen makes some graphics, some CPUs with integrated graphics. They end with the letter G on the model number. And of course, they're going to be making more of those because of the GPU shortage. But they're few and far between at this time. David Williams says, you might have missed my donations, Kerry, but appreciate you. Oh, I'm sorry, David. Oh yeah, David, I'm sorry, I see it here. David contributed $5. He says, I learned to build PCs from your videos back in the days of your point of view GoPro builds. I only did one. A viewer sent me that GoPro. And it took me almost a year to get the video filmed and edited. So he was like, you ever going to send that GoPro back to me? He was like, look, I don't use it, so you're welcome to borrow it. But I don't think he ever intended for me to keep it for a year. So then I was like, thank you. Is there anything I can do for you besides send it back? And yeah, it was very kind of the viewer to do that. David contributes again $5. He says, this hits closer to home now. My dad was a Vietnam veteran who's now passed, and he has a brother named Marvin. Finish the job right. Thanks, Gary. Thank you. Sorry I missed the contributions. Thank you for making me aware of that. It's a lot to do to monitor my audio levels, make sure my mic pack batteries haven't died, make sure I'm in frame on the camera, make sure OBS is connected, the internet connection is good, and then try and focus on the actual work I'm trying to do is a lot to juggle. I do my best, but I'm just here by myself, and I appreciate you understanding that challenge that I face. And David says another $5. He says, I had to bring up that point of view GoPro video. You know, I thought it'd be a cool idea back then. I thought, what if you had my eyes, my perspective? Then my hands wouldn't get in the way. You know, my back wouldn't, you wouldn't be looking at my back. Well, it turns out it made a lot of people motion sick. Also, it was like a Gen 1 or Gen 2 GoPro. So the video quality, like the color turned very yellow when I switched from the main camera to the GoPro. Now, I have a modern GoPro. I never use it, because there's no way for me to get it wired to the video input card, the video capture card, while having it on some kind of gimbal to balance it. If you don't balance it, the thing's all over the place. It's unstable. So if you put it on a gimbal and then you hook a wire up to it, the gimbal doesn't work right. It just becomes a big chaotic mess. They need to build a GoPro that has a gimbal built into the lens. You know, they made some, was it Sony or Panasonic, I think, made a digital camera. It wasn't an SLR. And it had a little gimbal built inside of the camera for self-steadying. It wasn't as great as a real gimbal, but it seemed like a great idea. It would help a little bit. So that's why I don't use the GoPro. And the GoPro doesn't have really a preview screen on it, so you don't know what it's filming. You got to like pair it to a phone. And back then I only had a flip phone. There was no way for me to pair it to my phone. Yeah, you heard me. I had a flip phone. So what? Not anymore. My S22 was supposed to come March 1st. And then Amazon emailed me and said it would be the 28th. And then they emailed me and said it shipped. So, but then I think it was something else. So they keep changing it, but it keeps getting earlier and earlier. Rupin Yermian contributes 10 Canadian dollars. I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing your name. He said, this is for parts, and I'll catch you for Friday's show. Hey, it's about time for me to wrap it up. So thank you to Rupin and David Williams, Patrick Roussaw, Frank M., Ricky B., Patrick again, David Williams again, Remy Ermes, Ryan Grady, thank you so much. Bob Connors, thank you so much. Perry, I'm going to try and say your last name, Perry. I don't know how to say it. Thank you for your support. Ryan Grady again. John Yasuda, my good buddy John Yasuda, thank you so much. Barry Klein and James Prezi. Peter Laycock, of course, with all of his continuous support. Dom Parada, the cool 2T, Robert Fitzpatrick, Peter Laycock again, James Prezi again. Temp, thank you. Ryan Grady, there he is again, 10 bucks. He says, I've also been watching your videos for about 12 years now, and I've always loved the honesty and integrity and knowledge you've offered in your videos. Thank you, Ryan. It's created a lot of rift from people who don't want to hear the truth or don't want me to expose what they've been getting away with, and that gets them very angry, and I stand up and push them down because they're ridiculous. So I appreciate the supporters. Paul Stallion 48 with $10 says, thanks for all you do, also for helping our veterans. I had a chance a while back to build a new PC for a friend of mine that's a Vietnam vet, all because of your teaching. Keep up the great work. Paul, thank you. Appreciate you guys so much. I love this community that we've made here. I love that we can help veterans. I never started this with like, hey, I'm going to help veterans. It was like an idea one day. I said, let's give some computers out to people in need. And I have a number of customers, and I've had a number of customers ever since my first month in business that were veterans, Gulf War veterans, Vietnam veterans. And in fact, the very first customer that enabled me to go self-employed full-time, he had enough work for me. He was visiting me when I worked at Best Buy before Geek Squad, and he wanted like a new motherboard put in, and Best Buy didn't do that. And I said, here's my name and my number. Call me on a weekend. I don't work on the weekends or whatever it was, and I'll do it for you on my spare time. And he said, oh, well, now that you've done this, I need you to do this. And anyway, he had so much work. I said, well, I guess I can quit my job and do this full time. And he was a Vietnam veteran. He had a pretty severe injury. He was missing one of his legs from the knee down and was constantly in the battle for the VA to get what he needed. And he ended up being a customer of mine until his stepson murdered him a couple of years ago. He was a super guy. I can't say enough good things about him. And again, I didn't start the channel to do that, but it's kind of gained momentum. I get a good response from the viewers. I get a good response from the veterans. And so sometimes life takes you in directions you weren't planning on that may end up being a better direction than you were ever heading on to begin with. So it wouldn't be possible without all of you. And I want you to know it means a lot to me. To the people who are supportive and kind, you guys mean a lot to me. To those of you who aren't, you can go to hell. But to the rest of you who are supportive and kind, and that's all of you here in the chat room today and those who've contributed, you mean the world to me. And all those jerks out there, they make you guys that much more valuable to me. So thank you. Arthur Morgan with 50 ARS contribution. Thank you for everything. Been watching you since I was in high school. He's now 25 years old and still here. That's awesome, Arthur. 50 ARS. I got to look up what ARS. I don't know all these currencies. Sorry, you think I'd know by now. That's an Argentine peso. It's about 50 cents of US dollars, but it doesn't matter how much or how little it is. It all adds up, and it all means the world to me because most viewers give zero. If every viewer gave just a little bit, boy, I'll tell you what, we could do so much more. But I'm not complaining. I just want you to know it means a lot to me, and I thank you. That's going to wrap it up for me for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow, 1 o'clock Arizona time. That's 12 Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll join me for another build, this time for a gentleman named Edgar. It's going to be a typical 8-year build. I think you'll enjoy it. It'll be familiar. We'll come back and we'll revisit with Marvin's build next week. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. Until then, bye for now. And Jerry Span just contributed $5 right under the wire. Thanks, buddy. Thank you, Jerry. I'm looking for an outro. Here we go. Good night, everybody. Bye for now.